Welcome everyone again to the third annual Animas Coaching Summit. Once again, a few quick bits to share from me. So today's sessions are being recorded and will be shared on the Animas YouTube channel after they've been edited in a few days' time. During presentations, the chat may be disabled to keep our focus on the speaker, but it will reopen again for Q&A sessions. If we include breakout rooms, feel free to join us as suits you best. There's no pressure. You can always stay in the main room. For privacy and confidentiality purposes, AI note takers aren't permitted in today's sessions. So it's my pleasure to welcome Christian Madsen, an ICF and EMCC-accredited transformational coach and a leadership and development facilitator. Christian also has his own practice, the Christian Madsen Academy, in which he supports leaders, teams and professionals who are in transition to reach their true potential, healthy high performance and well-being. I had the pleasure of training with Christian with Animas in 2022, and I've since interviewed him for the Animas YouTube channel for a great conversation, which I thoroughly recommend checking out. So with no further ado, I shall hand over to you, Christian, for your session.
Thanks a lot, David. Great and thanks for the introduction. And I picked my own name. It's the ego part, right, for the practice, because I could, and it was available. So that's why I used the name. But welcome again to this keynote about self-leadership, how leadership starts with self-leadership, and how we can also apply some of the lessons we have from the past for coaching leaders of the future, and also equally using some of the tools for yourself as coaches. As mentioned, it will be a facilitated session, approximately an hour. I will try to engage with you through some polls, also having some of you on mute where we can hear from one or two of you, and also in the chat, you're welcome to add any reflections and answers when we have some conversations going forward, and try to build this engaging conversation and learning experience together. So really happy to see so many of you joining, and also Animas family members, and I will do my best to make our 60 minutes together as valuable, engaging, and inspiring also for you. As David mentioned earlier, I'm Christian Madsen. I'm located in Copenhagen, Denmark here. I live with my family here, and I actually have a Master of Science from London South Bank University in International Business, and also more than a decade-long military career, both in the Army and in the Navy as a naval officer. And that has really shaped some of the approaches I have, some of the leadership experiences, and actually also my coaching journey started when I, 20 years back, were using coaching like leadership, and later built my own performance coaching company of endurance athletes, triathlon, cycling, ultra running. So actually performance coaching of ordinary people that try to achieve some extraordinary feats. Today I work in my practice, but also as a leadership development facilitator and coach at the AP Moller-Maersk, 100,000 employees globally, an integrated logistics company, and facilitating leadership development, and also coaching one-to-one and group coaching of up to 10,000 leaders globally. And of course, not myself only. We are a good dedicated team coaching leaders, but I have the experience both from the practice, but also from Maersk here. I work a lot with leaders in transitioning into new leadership roles, transition coaching to help them become even more effective leaders and better leaders. And that's where I really, find the passion, you can say, as a coach. When I'm not coaching or facilitating, I enjoy small outdoor adventures, and not to resemble the picture here in the slide. And I actually also enjoy the adventures spurring my son's football team as their football coach, which is, of course, also a separate part of coaching. But now I think let's dive into self-leadership and what it is and how we can work to build it. And I actually wanted to start out by asking you a question. So I would encourage you to go to slido.com. You can type in this code, use the QR code or the code without the hashtag self-leadership. And then in 1 to 2 words, write what self-leadership is for you. And then we will be sharing it, the results in a short while here. So just take a moment to answer this. So in 1 to 2 words, what is self-leadership for you? We begin to see some of the results already coming in. We see already something about self-awareness, something about discipline, accountability. Yeah. There's also something about purpose, values. I see around in this nice word cloud that we're creating. Knowing yourself, perhaps also in that some of the discipline, self-discipline that is also mentioned here. Yeah, lots of good things. Vision, taking ownership of your own journey. Direction, which is also mentioned here. So we need to go somewhere also to actually have that and showcase the self-leadership. So there's a direction, and I can see, both discipline, authenticity also coming in. Wonderful. Great. Many good things. Great to see. Thanks, everyone. So self-discipline, something about self-awareness, some of those elements. But let's just have a look at what it actually is. There are lots of definitions out there, also research-based ones from something relating to what was mentioned already in the word cloud, self-discipline, actually also resilience, self-control even. And in 2012, the motivational speaker and also an expert on self-leadership, Andrew Bryant, he wrote a book called Self-Leadership with Ana Lucia Kazan. And I actually picked this definition from them, which holds a whole set of nuances and perspectives to it and relates very well with what you've already been saying here. So self-leadership is having this developed sense of who you are, what you can do, where you're going, coupled with the ability to influence your communication, your emotions, your behavior on the way to getting there. So many of the things you already put into the Slido here relates very well to this. So getting to know who you are, get the self-knowledge, the self-awareness, have the direction to both influence, but also know where you're going to go. And then there's this impact on how we appear to others, the communication, the emotions, the behaviors, and by that also impacting others in that. So it shows something about knowing yourself, but also knowing others and how you affect or influence them. So Andrew Bryant also talks about that the work that to work on your self-leadership, we actually need to continuously develop our inner game and our outer game. So self-leadership is about building that self-knowledge and self-awareness. The inner game is your self-awareness about your mindset, your emotional states, your values, your belief systems. The outer game is our actions that affect our influence, but also how we impact and affect other people. Did you know that research shows that only 10 to 15% of people are actually in fact self-aware? They are not overconfident in their own skills or competencies. They're not totally arrogant because they think they are just the best and at everything they're doing. Only 10 to 15%. And a good example, if I take it from my personal life, back in school, I was often doing very well in different topics, good grades, and gradually I also became very confident in my own skills, and also to some extent a bit overconfident. When I later came to the Naval Academy to become a naval officer, I did well in the beginning. I came from experience in the Army where I've been a team leader already. And then one time I flunked an exam in navigation, which is quite bad when you want to become a navigator. So I was told that I needed to retake or redo a whole year at the academy to take the year over. And that from that situation, it actually instilled this insecurity in me. Could it happen again? My self-image also changed. I became less confident in myself. I was perhaps not as good as I thought. And later on, I also took, luckily, the degree. I did well in the years after and got really good grades at the academy and tried to still keep that humbleness and self-knowledge that I gained from taking that 1 year over, showing that these experiences we have, the stories we have about self-awareness can actually impact us very much. We can learn a lot from them. Now, I just wanted to pause before moving on and ask you also what you take away from this story about self-awareness, perhaps also about self-leadership and relating to your context also as coaches. You're welcome to write in the chat, but you're also welcome, one or two of you, to come off mute to share here in the group. What do you take away from this? Lavinia mentions perseverance, yeah. And Marcus shows or mentions knowing your strengths, limits, and shadows, yeah, exactly. And Karen also making mistakes is okay. We all do it, yes. It's a human aspect. And and Helen, you mentioned and setbacks lead to growth and self-discovery. Exactly. Our experiences inform and enrich what we can offer. So Celeste also mentioning Christina open to learn when things don't go as we plan. Great. And feeling safe. Yeah. So when we talk about self-awareness and we talked about how few we are actually that are self-aware, now I want to turn the page to leaders in organizations. What is it you think from your experience that hinders leaders from building that self-awareness? And we will just in a short while, I'll start the next poll, so you can tip into that. So please go into the Slido again, and then chip in the answers to what hinders leaders from building self-awareness. We see different things here. We see something about overconfidence, ego, time pressure, lack of feedback. There's also experience, power, different elements. And see how it moves. Let's just give it some time. So far it's the ego hindering the building the self-awareness. 40% taking the lead, and then time pressure, stress, no time to reflect, lack of feedback, also not asking for it, and is coming up close. With the clear leader of ego seems to be the main one you put out there in hindering the building the self-awareness. And then lack of feedback and time pressure is a close tie. Great. So let's move into, some of you also looked at or asked about the definitions of self-awareness. And I think actually there are some good, really good research out there on self-awareness. There's this Harvard Business Review article, for example, where research shows that awareness and self-awareness in particular here has two broad categories. The internal self-awareness, which is how well do you know yourself? and then we have the external self-awareness. How well do you understand how others perceive you? So the internal awareness here, self-awareness here, that's how clearly we see our own values, our passions, our aspirations. How does it fit with the environment, the context we're in, different reactions, our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, our strengths and weaknesses, and how it impacts others. As mentioned earlier, this is the inner game, you can say. This is what can be learned by pausing, reflecting, considering your responses also to different situations. For example, what kind of emotions am I experiencing in this situation? What am I assuming about the other person or the situation? What are the facts versus my assumptions, my interpretations? And what are my core values and how might they be impacting my reactions? So this is where we, through, for example, coaching, but also through introspection, can move a bit from why do I feel so terrible to what are the situations that make me feel terrible and what do they have in common? And then also from why did you say this about me? For example, if you received the negative feedback, to what are the steps I need to take in the future to do a better job? So the internal self-awareness is a key point, of course. And then we have this external self-awareness, how well you understand how others perceive you, as I mentioned. That means understanding how other people view us in terms of the same elements, meaning our behaviors, our strengths, our weaknesses, and how we relate with others, how we impact others. And the research here also shows that people who know how others perceive them, they're much more skilled at showing empathy and taking others' perspectives. For example, for leaders who see themselves as their employees do, their employees also tend to have a better relationship with them. They feel more satisfied with them and see them as more effective in general. And this external self-awareness is more the outer game. And we can also learn that through feedback, as you know. So what am I doing in team meetings that is helpful? What am I doing that is not helpful? If you could change one part of how I interact with my team and with you in the team, for example, as a leader, what would it be? So we have to work both as leaders on both kinds of self-awareness. So it can be tempting only to work on the ones that are easier, but actually we need to work on both to make a real change. And also for you as coaches, you can do the same for yourself. Research has also identified these 4 leadership archetypes when it comes to self-awareness that you can see here. So we can see the introspectors, that are the persons or the people who are high on internal self-awareness but very low on external self-awareness. They are clear on who they are, but they don't challenge their own views or search for the blind spots, for example, through getting feedback from others. And this can really challenge and harm their relationships and also limit their success. And then we have the pleasers, who are very high on external self-awareness but very low on internal self-awareness. They are so focused on appearing in a certain way and in their interactions with other people, so they overlook what matters to them. Over time, they also tend to make choices that aren't helping them in their own success and fulfillment here. If you read the book Give and Take by Adam Grant, the famous organization psychologist, he talks about givers and takers, and givers are having some of the same traits we can see here as the pleasers, trying to give a lot and also kind of connecting to the environment that they're in. Then we have here the seekers. The seekers are the ones low in both internal and external self-awareness. They don't yet know who they are, what they stand for, or how their team see them. As a result, they might feel stuck or frustrated with their performance or relationships. And then we have the aware, which are high on both. They They know who they are. They know what they want to accomplish, and they also seek and actually also value people's opinions, different perspectives. This is where leaders really begin to fully realize the benefits of self-awareness and also build that strong self-leadership. So how can you work on this? Well, I think an example from my life is when I started in my leadership roles in the army, for example. I was supposed to be extremely formal, disciplined in my leadership style. That I saw from my colleagues as well. And I quickly found out that this didn't resonate well with me. It didn't connect well with my values of getting to know people, understanding who my team was, learning about people's strengths, weaknesses, development areas, how they were personally, all of those things, and that conflict in that was actually to begin with. I was in the pleaser area here of the mostly external self-awareness, where I tried to adapt to what was the context in that sense, and later I began to become more aware that the people actually also wanted in the teams me to get to know them, interact with them, have some fun also. And that created that change in my self-awareness overall. And I chose to lead in a different way with different values like that, and had some good results with it. That was also noticed. So having the authenticity in that situation of relationship building and leading. As you can see here, personal accountability is also key. To be personally accountable, both as a leader, but also for ourselves in our lives. We need to recognize that there is a problem or discrepancy in our awareness here. Otherwise, we won't change anything. So accept that we are also part of the problem, and then take personal responsibility for solving it and helping in this in this situation, taking some actions on it. In most teams and organizations, for example, and also the organizational cultures can tend to go into frustration when there are some issues with team members and something organizationally happening, and that can be like what Peter Hawkins talks about as BMWing. So blame, moan, whine. That situation where we begin to blame other team members or even ourselves. So we can actually use this to explore some of our the different reactions we get, considering the emotions, the beliefs, the values, and also asking ourselves or the other person what's causing that reaction, the internal self-awareness, and also the impact it has on others. So let's. I can see also in the chat. There's also this about radical responsibility that Gaia also mentioned. Yes, that the responsibility piece connects well with that. And you can use this introspection and also the internal external self-awareness when you're interacting with others, also when you're coaching leaders, but also for yourself, being aware of those elements that we see here. So next, I just wanted to connect this a little bit to Peter Hawkins that I mentioned earlier, who's the professor of leadership at the Henry Business School, profound voice in systemic coaching. He says that you build self-confidence, which is a part of self-leadership, and also influence others as a coach, as a leader, or even when you work with the different stakeholders in an organization through the three aspects of authority, presence, and impact, the API model. So let's reflect on these three and also relate it to the coaching context, but also our self-leadership theme here. So let's start with authority. So when we talk about authority, you're welcome to put in the chat what comes to mind when you hear this word authority in relations to coaching, in relations to self-leadership. You're welcome to share in the chat here. Mark mentions credibility. Yeah, accountability mentions Susie. David mentions dominance, assertiveness, and confidence. Lots of experience, yes. Charlie mentions experience, which relates also, yeah. Diana, trust in the process. Andrew, rules. And also great that you call it out, Brinsley, the command and control style leadership, because that can also be the more negative description of and understanding of authority. Apitha mentions that authority comes with accountability and responsibility. Beatrice, gravitas and influence, yes. And Lucy, power to direct. Victoria, permission, yeah. Maureen, voice. Rachel, permission. Julie, again, decision maker. And Marco mentioned walk the talk. Again, Valentina mentions experience, knowledge, and Bernadette, the direction, the leadership, past experiences. Great stuff coming in. Thanks, everyone. And many of you have already connected well with the elements of authority. It all derives from what or who you know, what you have done in the past. So your achievements, your knowledge, your skills, your experience, your credibility is built by that. And then also who you know, your network. So there's something about the credentials, the experience, and the achievements, the knowledge, the skill set. And it's very much related to competency-based and also to some extent integrity-based trust based on your competencies, your skills, your experiences, and the predictability of your actions also. Great. Then comes presence, and that's in the present moment right now. What comes to mind when you hear presence? This is one of the buzzwords of coaching, but also presence in when it comes to self-leadership, but also towards leadership in organizational context. Mark mentions connection. Yeah. There's something about service, authenticity, compassion, trust, listening. Again, also awareness. Anastasia, sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Colette, your impact on others, active listening, visibility, purpose. Beatrice mentioned purpose. Marco, ability to being before doing. Exactly. And Brinkley, being in your body and not in your mind. Yeah. Abigail, active listening. Great points. Thanks. Instinctive. Julie mentions good. Also great. So you can say when it comes to presence, it's about the ability to be fully present with the quality of the relationships, the rapport building that is mentioned, also attention, respect in a wide range of the different situations where we can also um, interact with others. And then there was someone also in the chat, you mentioned the few of you also the awareness actually in this point, meaning that are we actually present to our own emotions, our assumptions, our beliefs? So actually noticing that as well, which is also part of the present. And this is also a great opportunity to consider what are the questions we talked about earlier. What emotions am I experiencing? What am I assuming in the connection here with others? Then let's move to impact. What is coming up for you? What resonates with you about impact when it comes to self-leadership and also towards coaching and your coaching practices? There's something about making a difference, your legacy, ripple effects. Beatrice mentioned making a positive difference, Lynn. delivering to promises, outcomes, Bernadette mentioned, client getting a light bulb moment, yeah. Following through on promises, results, change, growth, creating change, and generating thought. Karen mentions Julie empowering others. And Rachel mentions difficult to measure in this one. Marco mentioned shifts, change, progress. Yeah, exactly. And Mark mentions resonance. Andrew realizing the purpose, the value. Great things coming in here. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. So some of the things here you mentioned, also Marco, you mentioned shifts, and it's about making a shift live in the room. So we do that in coaching. We can do that as leaders. We can change those emotional states, also the mental state in the room, reframing what is being discussed or how things are perceived or addressed. And that relates also to some of the aspects we've been talking about relating to the inner and external self-awareness, internal and external self-awareness. So the other aspect of impact is also that ability to shift the conversation, to change that energy from using humor to being assertive and focused in our challenge of others. So now we have these things, these three elements mentioned here in the API model: authority, presence, and impact. Anyone wants to talk to this? Can pick one or two of you about how it relates to the theme here we've been discussing on self-leadership. Welcome to come off mute or raise your digital hand here. I think if we connect it to this external self-awareness, how well we understand how others perceive us, right? This is perhaps something we can connect to this, because then you can see the impact is that we can see a shift. So if we can see the energy changing in a room when we have conversations in a leadership team, for example, if that was the case, then we can clearly see that how our behavior, our communication affects the other people. So if I'm sensing no one is talking or sharing anything, then I can sense that perhaps I'm not being vulnerable enough. I haven't opened up enough. There's something about my appearance, perhaps, that affects the energy in the room. Those elements, and that's of course not easy to measure. That's a shift in the room, but that's something we can do on a personal side, right? Just as an example. Does it make sense, Rachel?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Thank you. I was just reflecting in the moment. So yeah, that sort of immediate feedback is from, I guess, the atmosphere, the energy, and the interaction. Perhaps I was thinking a bit too big. I wasn't focusing on self-leadership enough to understand what you were talking about with impact. So thank you. That's really helpful.
You're welcome. And Lauren? I think what you're talking to, and you're not a party pooper, don't worry. I think critical thinking is very open here. So I'm thinking the complexities of human beings are still here, of course. So being present is also being acknowledging our own emotions, being authentic, having those elements. So that can also be something that is triggering us in the moment, right? And that's some of the negative emotions that come up, for example, in connections or interactions with other people. So we still have that element around it, but we can also shape it through these aspects, through how we think about it, how we talk about it to others, how we become aware of where we focus our attention, right? So it's not only the positives, and there is definitely a lot of negatives, critical aspects of it, and you can say the blind spots in all of this, also with the internal and external self-awareness that we talked about earlier. So that also comes into play. But this is an approach, at least we can, to become aware and create that awareness around some different aspects we can somehow affect as human beings. But the human side, I'm all with you. We are human beings. It's complex, and it's not rosy red all the time. But actually, you can use this model here, right? You can see if you understand how your communication will impact the other person, then you already know how you can impact that person, right? So if you give that feedback directly, like you just did, then it most likely will not be received well. But if you, on the other hand, have a framing around it and say, okay, I really want us to be the best versions of ourselves. I want our team to be the best version of ourselves. And to do that, just notice that I'm coming with good intentions with what I'm providing here. And then framing the feedback around some of the things we notice in some situations, some of the behaviors, and what that impact has on ourselves, right? There's this good feedback model, the SBI model, situation, behavior, impact, where you can talk to some of these elements as well. You can say some of these aspects are also covered in the impact here in this model, but framing it around that and then providing the feedback more objectively fact-based, then you also get most likely a better response. But it's not easy, I know. There are emotions in these things when we also have the feedback conversations like that, right? Cool. So I also see some good comments in the chat. Fantastic also from Marco, leaders act as a thermostat to change the atmosphere. And to see knowing how to shift energy by leveraging your own vulnerability and openness is also powerful. And it's actually one of the keywords you mentioned, or two keywords, the safe space, right? It also goes for all the conversations, interactions we have in, let's say, in an organization, in a team, or in our lives in general. Creating that opportunity to be open, be vulnerable, have that is still key. It's key in coaching, but it's also key in leadership when you can have that one-to-one conversation or team conversation, for example. So it's a great point. Wonderful. I think we are soon coming to an end. I just wanted to ask you just to go to Slido a last time here before we end our conversation also, and we also have time for some questions in the end. So again, we will be moving to Slido. I will just change the poll so you can access it again and we can see the results. So go to slido.com again and then write what insights you're taking away today. And we see some comments coming in. So leadership is complex. Definitely is. It's not easy. And self-awareness is key for leaders to be effective. The shocking data around self-awareness or lack of it, how few leaders are self-aware. And the more you know yourself, the more you can help others. And probably also one with a self-reflection that the person is not as self-aware as I think. Yeah. And as coaches, we need to work on ourselves. New models, internal game and external game, no doubt. Continually and concurrently playing, and also that reflection on being present to oneself is the key to support growth in others too. Okay, the API model, good. Mhm. Need for leaders to be vulnerable so teams can be too, and to create enough psychological safety so others can provide their perspective. Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone, for chiming in here. And also one is mentioning, surprised how many think about ego when thinking about leaders. This doesn't fit with the more modern version of servant leadership mentioned by another entity. And I think you're definitely right. But we all have an ego. So you can say it's a human side as well. So, but it's definitely something to work on so we can also move leadership towards empowerment, towards thinking about the servant leadership side, as mentioned also here. Yeah, great. Let me just stop sharing and be able to see you. I just wanted to end our conversation here. So I just wanted to hear if any questions, any reflections coming up here towards the end, besides what has been mentioned here. You're welcome to speak to it here. I think it's a good question. I think, for example, the API model, we can do it to some extent with the presence, right? Having people notice, okay, what am I focusing my attention on right now? What are some of my beliefs, perhaps? What I'm telling myself is, am I telling myself that to be a great leader, I just need to be directive instead of asking questions, for example? That could come up, right? So there is this focus and beliefs that can be in that aspect of the API model. I would also say, the language we use, the internal self language, or self talk, what we say to others. So our communication side of it, that can also be something we can consider together with leaders, noticing, okay, how's our communication supporting a learning environment, for example, versus fear, no psychological safety. So instead of saying, what did you do wrong? You could say, what did you learn? Which is just a few tweaks of words, right? So that can create an awareness and hopefully the alignment around it. And then I think there's a forgotten aspect of it, the physiology part of it, meaning, okay, what's my emotions? What are my triggers? What am I showing with my appearance, my body language? Those elements we can also touch upon, and that's something we seldomly do in a corporate organization, for example. But that's an aspect we can also notice. So, and that can be used. It's all under the presence, we can say, in this part. I hope that expanded it a little bit. You're welcome. And actually, Marco, I just wanted to add one thing. There was Tricia mentioning in the chat workshops around emotional intelligence for all, but also actually what we are doing, where I am working with leaders, is we're using the perceptual positions model from coaching as part of some of the participation we're doing to kind of coach some of the leaders in changing perspectives and putting themselves in other people's shoes and bringing that empathy side to it. That's actually something that can help also in creating that, or showcase some of the discrepancies that can be there, right? In terms of this alignment you talk about. So that's a useful model also we can use together with the leaders. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We're coming to an end, and thanks also for the nice comments in the chat. So we're rounding up. So thanks everyone for taking the time to attend this session, and hopefully we can connect again in the future.
I think on behalf of everyone and Animas, thank you, Christian, for your presentation. It's been fantastic. And thank you to all the delegates for all your participation in the chat and the activities. It's been great to have you here. Hopefully see you on one of the 3 remaining sessions of the day. And thank you and goodbye from me.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.